thank you so much for all you do. Oh, there we go. Now we're official. So it's 4 o'clock. I'm calling the meeting to order. And Catherine, thank you for everything you do for us. And could you do a little more and please call the roll?
Certainly. Sharon.
Here.
Thank you. David Anderson.
Here.
Bill.
Here.
Janet.
Here.
Kyle.
I'm here.
David Dellendorf.
Yeah, he's here.
He's there.
He's there.
Paul.
Here.
Jane.
Here.
Patty.
Here.
Tony.
Present.
Richard.
Here.
Liz.
Present.
Robert.
Not yet.
Missing
I do not
Robert.
see Robert.
Kevin.
Aki?
Olivia will be joining us later. Maureen.
Here.
Anne Marie.
Here.
Tom Starr.
Here.
I see you.
Okay, so Olivia and Robert are absent. Is that it?
I think she said Olivia's coming later.
Yes,
Yes.
Olivia will be joining us late, but at the beginning of the meeting, we just need to recognize that she wasn't present for that.
And I'm reaching out to Bob to see if he's trying to join us.
Okay, so we'll move on to the minutes. Anybody have any questions, edits, issues with the minutes? If not, I would accept a motion to adopt the minutes. Anne Marie and Sharon seconded. So Anne Marie moved, Sharon seconded to adopt the minutes. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed or absent? Okay, Sharon's opposed or you're still, no. Sharon's good. Okay, the minutes pass. Do we have Ron on the phone yet?
I have not seen him.
Okay, well, we told him, I think, what's that?
Sorry.
Sharon, is there a mouse in your office?
No, just talking to the cat. She's decided that this is when I should pay attention to her, like right when this meeting starts. Okay.
Of course. That's why I'm a dog person.
And Bob said this is the first Zoom meeting that he's late to because of traffic.
God, I love him.
He's in Machu Picchu tonight, isn't he?
He's on his way, about 5 minutes out.
So we actually told Ron that he would have a start time of 4:15, I believe. So as soon as he comes on, he can join. He can begin his presentation. There were a couple other things that we can actually do quickly. One is when we go through the subcommittee reports later on in the meeting, one of the things I'm really looking for is highlights that you would like us to address in the beginning of the town halls. So when you give those presentations, if you could make sure if the subject that's being discussed in your committee that you think the public should hear about, that's important, not that anything isn't important that we're discussing, obviously, but any major issues or things that are really gaining traction that you believe will come as a full recommendation, if you can put those forward. The other thing I wanted to mention is we have our first two legal opinions from Randy Gaylord, and I just wanted to make sure everybody saw those and had a chance to look at those.
I did.
And then I see a hand from Jane, and then Sheriff Krebs is here, so we'll go to him after Jane. Okay, we're gonna have a couple questions or comments, and then we'll go to the sheriff. Please,
Okay.
Jane, go ahead.
Thanks very much. Thanks very much, Mr. Chair. On the last point you mentioned about our committees putting to you for the town hall any issues that are getting close to possible amendments or what have you. My only concern about that is that we as committees haven't necessarily had an opportunity to agree on that. So our Justice and Equity Committee met on Monday. So I wasn't, we weren't aware of that possibility. So I think it's important that if committees are going to put issues forward, if the leads feel that there's something important to be brought to the attention in a town hall when our committee is mentioned, I think there needs to be some, just maybe it's email agreement that is an issue that the committee
Wait.
members are okay with. Just
Yeah, so I really appreciate that. I feel like it's a little less formal than that. It's in the beginning of the town halls, we're going to talk about, first of all, we're going to let people know what a charter is, because most people don't even know we have one, and what in the heck we're doing. And then the second thing is, if there are issues that are being discussed that we think the public might want to hear about, we will state, as examples that are being discussed. Not that they are
Okay.
necessarily going to be a recommendation, but they're items that are being discussed. So for instance, the issue in the climate committee of independently elected official to look at climate or consolidation of the environmental practices within the county, that sort of thing, as a highlight. And I would preface that by saying, none of these have been decided upon, but these are examples of things that are being discussed.
Okay. Can I just suggest, Kevin, just to follow on from that quickly, that
course, please.
that leads of the committees just please share with their committee members points, just within the committee, that they say, are you in agreement that we can just put to Kevin for flagging in the introduction of the town hall that these are issues, just so that we're all in agreement.
Yeah, and absolutely, I think it's a great idea. I wouldn't necessarily think that we need agreement on the issue, though. You may be opposed to the issue, but
Oh yeah, no, exactly, absolutely. No, I just meant for putting it out there, right?
okay, great. Yeah,
That's all. Yeah, I take your point. No, it's just so that the lead can let others know, hey, I think it might be worth putting this out there to let the community know. What do you think? Everybody okay with that? That's all I'm talking about.
absolutely.
Okay,
Well,
thank
and
you very much.
yes, of course. And Dick, you had your hand up?
Yeah, but let's wait and let Ron start.
Okay. Sheriff Krebs, thank you so much for joining us this afternoon, evening. It's nice that it's not already dark at 4 o'clock, so we're getting out of winter.
Yeah, it's a nice day out too, so
It's a gorgeous day out. We should all be on the water instead of on Zoom.
I couldn't agree more.
But listen, thank you so much, and not just for taking the time today, but for your
No.
service.
No, thank you. Anytime.
I continue to hear great things about your work and your deputies and your full team. So just thank you for everything you do for our community.
Yeah, I've got an amazing team, and those guys are doing it all, and they do great work. So I'm incredibly proud of them.
Great, great. So we are obviously looking at charter amendments. Some of them could potentially have impact on your position directly, as well as your department.
Sure.
I would hope positive impacts, but we'd really like to hear from you today just about your department and your position both. So, what being sheriff entails and what that's like, and such, and then also your department, kind of what's within your department. I remember when I was a county commissioner getting briefings, and then later on as well. And there's a lot that your department does that I wasn't aware of. So it would just be beneficial for the full commission here to hear from you. So thank you, and I'll turn it over to you.
All right, thank you. So I created a PowerPoint. It's not death by PowerPoint, I assure you. It's a few slides here, so it'll give you a good overview of my office, and then there will be plenty of opportunity. I'm sure you guys will all have questions, and I'm more than happy to answer those. So let me try to share this.
Catherine, is it set up so he can share?
I can make him a co-host if it's not coming up for you.
Well, I don't have to share it, but it would. It's good visual.
No, I think
It'd certainly
if
help.
you've got some visuals, I think that'd be great.
Yep. Let me. All right.
I just made you a co-host, Sheriff Krebs.
Okay. Oops. It's going to take me half a second here. Okay. You all see that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So actually, it looks like.
Very Santa Fe on your color choices.
All right, hang tight. I'm still kind of a rookie at this, so let's try this. Okay, how's that? Does that look right?
Looks great.
Okay. All right, so this is just kind of an overview of my office. The sheriff's office, we have 36 employees total. 22 of them are sworn. That's in patrol. So they're the deputies that you see around the islands. My two detectives and then two corrections officers. We have two civil employees in the civil office that works for Kim Ott. They take care of things like your writs of paper services. They deal with grants, paying the bills, a lot of paperwork, public records and whatnot. We have two corrections officers and then 10 emergency services dispatchers. So all the dispatch for the county comes through the sheriff's office. We dispatch law, we dispatch fire, EMS, and then for the last couple of years, we've also dispatched Island Air Ambulance, which is one of the two, I'm sure you're all familiar with Island Air Ambulance, one of the two life flights off the island. We're also responsible for all the outer island areas, the islands that stick above the water, anything above or anything within the county lines, boundaries of San Juan. Last year, we did 11,008 calls for service requiring a deputy. So those are law calls only. We took 22,791 total calls for service, and that would include fire, EMS, and Island Air Ambulance, anything emergency services wise. They handle a lot more phone calls than just that. These are calls that only get entered into our CAD system. So if somebody calls in and they have a question for, say, a detective, or they have a question for somebody else in the office that doesn't necessarily generate a physical call, they also take care of those as well. So they likely have probably doubled that number in just phone calls. And then people come to the window. They handle the walk-in services as well. Here's a breakdown of the organizational chart. So you've got the sheriff, and then under me, I've got an undersheriff and chief civil deputy. The undersheriff takes care of the patrol side. He deals with the detectives, sergeants, and the deputies and corrections as well. As you can see, we have two detectives. Both of them are deputies that have been promoted to detective. One is on Orcas Island. They both work out of the Friday Harbor office, but one lives on Orcas Island. The other one lives on Lopez Island. And then Friday Harbor, we have 6 deputies and a sergeant. Orcas Island, we have 5 deputies and a sergeant. And Lopez Island, we have 3 deputies and a sergeant, and then 2 corrections officers that deal with the inmates here at the jail. My civil office, we have 2 full-time employees in there that Kim manages that, again, deal with public records and paperwork. I have a dispatch supervisor and then 9 emergency services dispatchers, which provides 24-hour emergency services dispatch to the county. And then the DEM director, Brendan Cowan, and the DEM assistant director, or the assistant, his assistant director, Dave Halloran, also work under my office, in an outside office. So, and Dave Halloran is our E911 coordinator, and he is also the coordinator that's putting together this radio project that we have going on, that's upgrading our radio system. So the mission, our mission and our priorities. I was elected in 2015. So this is the beginning of my 3rd year of my 2nd term as your sheriff. When I was elected, I identified several areas and priorities that I felt needed to be addressed. The first thing I did is I came in and I raised the standards of conduct within the office. I did that by creating a mission statement and a code of ethics statement. So when I swear a new deputy in, they raise their right hand and they repeat the oath of office. They also get a copy of the mission statement, code of ethics statement, read over that, they sign that, and that's, we hold them to every word on those papers as well. We had, you guys still hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, just, all right, sounded odd in my ear. So we we're using old and outdated employee evaluation. So we changed the employee evaluation process to a more current standard and professional employee evaluation. We went with the Lexipol Policy Manual, which is a national policy manual created by Gordon Graham, who was with California, chief of police, I believe in California, might have been an attorney as well. And he created the Lexipol Policy Manual, which is kind of what most departments in the nation are going to now. They update it regularly. So when case law changes or national best practices change, the policy manual reflects that. I increased the training hours for our guys in the office. So we now, instead of doing just the standard 24 hours that's mandated by the state for training, we also do critical incident training. I brought in DV instructors to provide domestic violence training to help us deal with DV situations better. I've expanded our use of force program to deal with use of force incidences and training in that area. And then we also do daily training bulletins. So every day, the Lexipol policy puts out a daily training bulletin. It takes about 5 minutes to do each one. They're usually scenario based. It takes a little bit of reading, a little bit of time, but then you have to answer the question. You have to get the question right. So we do those. So they do about 365 of those every year. We updated our emergency services dispatch so we could better serve the community. Our dispatch center was old and outdated and hadn't really been updated in quite some time. Everything from the desks to the hardware, the computer equipment was updated so we can better serve our community. And then I worked with our partnering agencies in our community, obviously, to pass the 1/10 of 1 cent sales tax so we can get our new radio system. And that's up and going. And we're hoping to have that up by the end of the year. Recruiting and hiring. One of the things I did was I wanted to change the culture in the sheriff's office. And I got rid of the us versus them mentality within the office. I think you've all in San Juan seen the good old boys bumper stickers that came out of that. We completely did away with that. We had some issues with some employees who are no longer with the sheriff's office anymore. And we brought in some really good people, a lot of laterals from other agencies and a couple of new hires. I hired a couple local kids as well that have done a fantastic job serving the community. One of the things that I also did was I've sent all my command staff to the FBI LEDA training. And LEDA is the Law Enforcement Executive Development Association. And they teach leadership through ethics and integrity. And they really put an eye on leading the people. They talk a lot about system injustices, racial injustice, racial bias, all the big things that are kind of the key words and the trigger words today. So they go through a Supervisor Leadership Institute, they go through a Command Leadership Institute, and then an Executive Leadership Institute. The supervisor is the line level, so your sergeants. The command is the next level up, and then executive would be my level. But I've sent all my people through all of those. It just helps us lead the staff better. It gives us a better understanding of leadership, better understanding of staff, better understanding of the new people that we're bringing in. Kids are getting younger and you can't treat them the same way that we were treated, and we have to be able to adapt and change with that. So that's what the FBI LEDA courses are teaching, and it's just a fantastic course. I looked really hard at the people that apply and interview with the sheriff's office. I don't want somebody who's going to come in and if I ask them, why do you want to be a cop? I ask everybody, the first question I ask is, why do you want to be a cop? And then why here? I don't want someone who says that, I watched an episode of Cops or Live PD. It looked like fun. That's what I want to do. That's not the right reason. I want to hire somebody who wants to be a deputy for the right reason. And I always look for someone who says they want to give back to the community. They want to be a part of the community. They want to help people. because, at the end of the day, yes, we do arrest people, and yes, we do put them in jail. It's not something that anybody that we have here enjoys, but it's our job. But if we can intervene and we can help these people before we get to that point, then everybody wins. It helps our budget, it helps our community, and all my guys feel that way. So lastly, I want to talk about accreditation quickly. There are 46 departments in the state, 46 police. There's roughly 250 police agencies in the state, police departments in the state, police and sheriff's office. 46 of them are accredited. There are 7 sheriff's offices accredited. We're working towards WASPIC accreditation. And what the accreditation process does is it's a process that allows the agencies to be certified so that we know that what we're doing is right. It's the national best practices as well as the state best practices. They cover roughly 150 different areas within the agency. There are 2 accreditation standards. There's the WASPIC accreditation, which covers about 150, and then there's the CALIA accreditation, which is a national accreditation. They cover about 470 or so. We went with WASPIC because the CALIA, a lot of their accreditation areas don't apply to us because we don't have a vice squad. We don't have a homicide squad. We don't have an air unit. So it doesn't make sense. So we're going with the WASPIC accreditation. We'll be the first time this agency's ever been accredited, and we're really looking forward to that. So some of the benefits of accreditation, increased public confidence, credibility. It will help us broaden our perspectives in that this is San Juan County, and we do things differently here because we have to do things differently in some areas. Geography dictates that, we can't do things from a law enforcement perspective exactly like they do it on the mainland, just because the mainland doesn't have boats and they don't have massive gaps of water between us to deal with. So, but there are a lot of things that we can learn from larger agencies and mainland agencies as well that will change the way we do things. It will strengthen the understanding of the policies and procedures by the personnel and by our staff. I don't want them to necessarily just, it's not enough that they just know that this is the way they have to do it because it's in writing. I want them to understand why we do things the way we do them. Recruitment, selection, and promotion process, we want to make sure they're fair and equitable. It will increase the morale and the pride within the sheriff's office, knowing that we are one of, again, 46, will be the 47th, well, will be the 8th sheriff's office in the state and the 54th agency in the state to be accredited. And again, reduces litigation, insurance costs, and there's a whole bunch of other benefits. Those are some of the big ones. And then lastly, the assessment. What do they look at? They look at the goals and objectives of the sheriff's office. They look really closely at our use of force and also use of force review. And use of force isn't just officer-involved shootings like you hear. Use of force is also anything more than just a standard, I put you under arrest, had to go hands-on with you to put you in handcuffs, you struggled. That's not necessarily use of force, but if we have to take you to the ground, if we have to fight with you, you have to use force, then we have a review process in place that looks at that. WASPIC will come in, they'll look at our review process and make sure that what we're doing is we're doing it to the national or state best practices and standards. They look at the management, our organization, they look at records management, unusual occurrences. Unusual occurrences is anything from an internal affairs investigation, somebody makes a complaint, or we, within our internal review, determine that a deputy did something that was maybe not correct. We look at why they did that, what they did, how can we fix that, how could it have been prevented, could it have been prevented? Anything like that, that's an unusual occurrence. They look at fiscal management, recruitment, training, and about 140 other areas within the office. They come in, they really turn the agency upside down and look at exactly how we do things and then give us guidance on this is what you need to do to change. This is what you need to come into compliance. Once we do that, then we're accredited and well, it goes before a commission, which then gets forward to the board votes and we get accredited. You're accredited every 3 years. So we have to go back through a reaccreditation process, which is not nearly as difficult as the initial process to get there, but it's not enough to just be accredited and say, okay, we're accredited, we'll get it again. They come in and they look at everything we've done. They look at all 150 areas and make sure that what we've been doing for the last 3 years is the way we're supposed to do it. And if you're not, they don't reaccredit you. So it's important that we get reaccredited, and it's important that we just do things right. So we're really looking forward to that. The guys are excited about that. I'm excited about that. It was something that I pointed out when I was elected the first time in 2015. It was important to me that I wanted to go for accreditation. There was a lot of work that needed to be done around here before we started down that process, and it's taken us the last 4.5 years or so to get there. We're there now. We're working towards that, and I think before the end of the year, we'll be done with our process, and we'll bring the team in to go through the assessment. So, and with that, that's the end of what I have. So if you have any questions, fire away. Hi, Maureen.
Sheriff, thank you very much for that presentation. Really appreciate it. I already see some hands up, so why don't we dive straight into questions? So I see Maureen C. and then David Dellendorf.
So, hello, Sheriff Ron.
Hi, Maureen.
I wanted to ask you the type of calls that come in for you. What's the percentages of types of calls? I have a second part to the question, and it's what I'm asking it.
Yeah. There's a couple different ways to answer that. Well, this last year during COVID, we got a whole different type of call. But on a normal year, we get a lot of nuisance calls, and get a lot of dog at large, get a lot of speeders. We get a lot of complaint type calls. We get a fair amount of fraud calls. If you're talking about major calls, something that's not just a normal dog at large, a dog nuisance call, we get a fair amount of domestic violence calls. We get some property crimes. We get a fair amount of drug complaints. And those are some of the bigger calls that we get, the more active calls, should I say, that we get. The domestic violence is probably the most prolific. We get those constantly, probably a couple of times a week. Sometimes more, sometimes we'll go a week or two where we don't have any of those calls. So.
The second part of my question, if I may just quickly ask you,
Yeah.
in the domestic violence calls, of which we're all sort of aware of that, at some point in time, do you have any interface with like Compass Health or with the Health and Community Service Department? So.
Yeah, so I sit on the board for Safe San Juan's, which is used to be called DVSAS, Domestic Violence Sexual Assault Advocates. They changed to a friendlier sounding name because, quite honestly, they sound like an overbearing government agency coming down on the victims with DVSAS. So they changed to Safe San Juan's. We work very closely with Compass Health. We have weekly meetings with Compass Health as well as the hospital. So yeah, we work very closely with all of them.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Sheriff.
Yep.
David Dellendorf, please.
Hi, Ron. Thanks for
Hey, Dave.
coming.
How are you?
Two related questions, somewhat related. You're an elected official. You're not
Yes.
you're not appointed like the county manager is.
Yes.
So theoretically, you report to the public who elected you, not to the county council. Could you describe the type of interaction you have with the county council other than in preparing budgets, given that you're not reporting to them, but obviously they're interested in law enforcement and related issues. So there's got to be interaction. And related to that, what is the oversight that there exists in our county, like you see in other larger jurisdictions where you have police review boards, and if there's an officer suspended for something, there's some kind of review process. How does that happen in this county?
So my relationship, on to the first one first, my relationship with the council, I always try to maintain a good relationship with the council in that, you know,
That's good to know.
we're all on this, we're all on the same team. Well, I tell you, I go to the sheriff's meetings and I sit in, I just had one this morning, and sit in with 38 other elected officials, or 37 now. And I'm not the only one. I am one of very few that have a really good relationship with our council. It's amazing how adversarial some of them are. So I want to have a good relationship with the council. The council members are elected. They have constituents they have to answer to. I have constituents that I have to answer to. And it just works better if we all work as a team and on the same page. As far as oversight goes, yeah, I'm directly accountable to all of you. You know, the people that put me in this office. If there's an issue with an employee or an officer, I certainly involve the county because, you know, ultimately they work for the county. They work for me. They're paid by the county. They work for the county. They're a county employee. And if there's going to be an issue, a lawsuit or something comes out of it, they're going to be involved. So I involve them in all of our decisions well, not all the decisions, but all the processes. As far as, I'm sorry, you had another question at the end of that, I think, or you were trying to get it.
Well, what I'm curious about, is there an independent review process that doesn't involve you, for example, but it's some third party, or
Yeah.
How does that work?
Well, so if it's a major situation, like we've had a couple of them. I had a detective back when I was first elected my first term. I had a detective who had an issue with a victim. I had a sergeant who also on Orcus who didn't call someone out in the middle of the night for a home intruder that supposedly had a gun. So rather than investigate those myself, I called in Skagit County and the SMART team and brought them in. They're an outside independent review that takes me completely out of the process. It's the most transparent way to do it. It's the best way to do it. And anything major like that, that's the way we go. If it's something smaller, something that is handled internally, like I've had a number of issues internally with employees that we've had to deal with, and we dealt with them. As
Sheriff,
far as,
I'm sorry, could you clarify what the SMART team is?
oh, it's the Skagit. It's a team of Whatcom County, Skagit County, and Island County, and I think Snohomish County puts together a collaborative team together that will then investigate major incidences, like the Cascade Mall shooting. That was the SMART team. The collaboration of all four agencies came together and investigated that, put that together.
And are they all law enforcement, or is it
Yes.
citizen based? Yeah, it's all law enforcement.
Yes, they're a criminal criminal justice, criminal based enforcement team, or not enforcement, investigation. Yeah.
Thank you, Sheriff.
Yeah, they're all deputies and detectives.
Excellent. Excellent. David, did that answer your question?
Yes, thank you. Thank you.
Then just to throw something else out there for David too, if there's always the public record process, and we've had a number of people do public records on our employee files. So if there's an incident that happens with an officer, we're going to put it out to people. The Detective Parker, that was all turned over. If anybody wants to see any of that, it is public record, and they can certainly request it. So the oversight really is the community that elected me.
Excellent. Thank you, Sheriff. Other questions? Kyle, please, and then Jane.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's a two-parter, if I can.
Yes.
Good afternoon, Sheriff Krebs.
Hey, Kyle.
First question, are you feeling like deputy-wise that you're at sort of full force right now? And if not, how many more people would you want? And then the part two is, I'm curious from a diversity perspective, where where our jobs, your positions are advertised, and what the chances of attracting minority or female candidates into the force would be, and if that's rare, what you think about that or why that is.
The last couple of years I've asked for another detective. I think we're good staffing wise. I got another position on Lopez, which we were desperately needing. We had 3 deputies total on Lopez, including the sergeant at one point. So that meant when one deputy went on vacation, another deputy had to have a day off. There were days or sometimes 2 days where we would only have one person on in a 24-hour period. So he'd work 8 or 10 hours of the 24-hour period, and the rest of the time there was nobody on. So backup wise and safety wise, officer safety wise, I asked for a position on Lopez. I was given that. That really shored us up there. I asked for a detective at one point because our detectives were just buried in cases. COVID came along and they were able to catch up on a lot of those. A lot of the cases that the detectives deal with are sexual assault cases. And, honestly, I think a lot of the child crimes that we have seen historically, we've not seen because the kids are not in school. They're not coming in contact with the mandated reporters, the school counselors, the school teachers, and the school nurses. Everybody, law enforcement wide, the CAC, which is the Child Advocacy Center in Mount Vernon that we use for interviewing kids, they're predicting a huge rush once school gets back in. I really hope that's not the case, but I think that will be the case, unfortunately. So they're going to be busy again. If I need anything, it will at some point probably be another detective. To the recruiting aspect, we have to use, statutorily, we have to use civil service to do our recruiting. When I was elected the first time, I named 2 recruiters within my agency, Jason Gross, Deputy Jason Gross on Orcas Island, and then Sergeant Eric Peter from this island are our 2 recruiters. Prior to COVID, they went down to the job fairs in Linwood and CJTC and some of the colleges trying to recruit people to come into law enforcement. The challenge that we're seeing now is with everything going on in the media and everything going on nationally, it's difficult to get people to come or get quality people to come and apply for this profession. We're already seeing it here. I was fortunate enough to get some really, really good lateral applicants, and we've got a couple of really good entry-level applicants. Walker Vandenhazel, who we just hired on Lopez, fantastic kid. And we just hired a female deputy for San Juan Island as well. I don't get a lot of female applicants. I don't get a lot of minority applicants. We desperately need someone that speaks Spanish that could help get in with the Spanish speaking community here. We had Felix for a long time. That helped, but I won't go into that. But I certainly need another Spanish speaking applicant, and I would love a couple more female deputies as well. There are so many things that a female deputy can do that's better suited for them than it is a male deputy. One of them is dealing with children. We've got some pretty gregarious guys who do really good with young people and kids, but it's not like having a mother type figure who can be there for the kid. They trust them better. Another one is female domestic violence victims tend to open up about or even female rape victims. They open up about some of the very personal and embarrassing aspects of those crimes to a female a lot easier than they will to a male. We haven't had a female here since Nikki Rogers left. And she unfortunately had to leave because her mother had some serious health issues. And so she left. And I can count on probably 3 fingers the number of female applicants that we've had over the years. So getting women to come into this profession is not easy. It is still very much a male dominated field. And I don't believe that it's for a lack of trying to get women to come into the profession. I don't know what it is, but that's what it is. So yeah, we work really hard trying to get good quality applicants, and then also if I can get good quality female applicants or good quality, Spanish speaking applicants, or I don't care if you speak French or Italian, we do look for that type of diversity. With the civil service though, it's such a long, arduous process. You have to go down to CJTC, which is the Criminal Justice Training Commission in Burien. You take a test, you take a written test, and then you take a physical test where you run around a track, you do some push-ups, pull-ups, sit-ups, and then you get scored. After you're scored, you get put on a list, and then it comes to our Civil Service Commission in San Juan County, and there are 3 commissioners on that. She then puts them through an oral board where they get scored again, and then those numbers are combined to rank them on a list. So when I have an opening, I get the top 3 or the top 5 applicants. And if there's a female and she's number 7 or 8, she may not even see my desk. So I'm not a huge fan of the civil service process. I understand why we have it. I think at some point it did and probably even does some good, but it really makes it difficult to recruit quality applicants, because I can go out and find the best female applicant in the world. I can talk to her, I can recruit her, come out to San Juan County. We want you to test. And if she doesn't test high enough or doesn't do well enough on the sit-ups, we'll say, or she doesn't run fast enough and her score is below somebody else, maybe it's a guy who can run faster and do more sit-ups and maybe scored just 5 points better on the written exam than she did, but she would be they both would be fantastic deputies, but where their numbers fall, I might not even see her. So that's a frustrating aspect of civil service. So
Thank you.
yeah, it's a challenge. It is. So
I have Jane next, and then I see Tom, and then Dick.
Oh, man.
Jane, you're muted. Oh, now
Thank
you're-
you. Sorry, Mr. Chair. Sheriff Krebs, nice
Yes.
to see you.
yeah, you too.
And I'm from Lopez Island, from District 3. And I want to say I had an EMS situation myself personally and had to be airlifted off Lopez. And I can't speak highly enough about how the system works, how EMS responds. My daughter has also had a situation. I just want to say full respect for the work that EMS does, at least in the experience I've had on this island, and I can imagine across the county. So well done.
You got a fantastic team over there.
Yeah. So thank you for your presentation. It was very helpful, very informative. I'm also sitting on our Justice and Equity Committee. There's a few of us on that committee, which is a sub entity of our commission.
Yep.
And we've been discussing the safe and inclusive community resolution that was passed by the council last year, really in response to a tremendous amount of unsettlement as a result of protests going on regarding Black Lives Matters, reactions to that. You know that on Lopez we had some pretty visceral and live reactions to Black Lives Matters. So I'm just curious to know, sort of related to David's question, what is the relationship between your office and what will be efforts getting going regarding that resolution and the implementation of that inclusive and safe communities resolution that was passed last year? I had a chat with Mike Thomas about it last Friday to find out, has any action been taken on that resolution? Certainly it sounds like they're just starting to have some discussion around that resolution and how that resolution might play out in terms of the council's, the county government's actions on it. So I'm just curious how you would play into that. And a related question, if the chair will allow me, but it is a related question based on information we've obtained about, and actually it's from the judge's office, about the existence of a Law and Justice Council, and whether or not your office plays into that Law and Justice Council that exists in the county as well. Thank you very much.
Yeah, so I sat and worked with the people that put that resolution together. They initially had some things in the resolution that conflicted with state law and some recent legislature that came out of Olympia. And we fixed it and made it one that's workable for all of us. So I haven't seen any of that necessarily work yet, but I did work closely with them, and I'm happy to work closely with them. I have a lot of respect for all the people that sat on that committee, or the group that put that together and brought it forward. The Law and Justice Council, yeah, we sit on that. We have regular meetings. They're quarterly meetings now in the county. It's the judges, the prosecuting attorney, my office, juvenile court, adult court probation, juvenile court probation, district court sits in there. So yeah, we sit on that regularly, and we discuss issues and we discuss topics. A lot of the topics are court related, sentencing related, safety related within the county. So yeah, and I got to say, I'm happy and I'm proud to work with the people in that county. There's not anybody in that council or in that room that does not want to do the best they can for the people that come through the system. Coming through the criminal justice system is not easy. It's not easy on anybody. And I have always said that there are very, 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 very few people that I can even think of that were truly bad people. Most people that we see that come through here, they're victims of circumstance, victims of poor upbringing, victims of economy, victims of social class. They make poor decisions because they maybe don't know any better. A lot of the traffic related offenses, domestic, driving without a license, suspended licenses, that really creates a quagmire, and the courts recognize that, and we recognize that. Once you start down that road, it's hard to get out of it. You start amassing fees and you start amassing fines, and then you can't get your license back, but you can't get to work without your driver's license. So you go ahead and drive anyways because you got to work. We pull you over, we arrest you for driving suspended again. So one of the things that we did a couple of years ago is I put out an order to my staff to don't arrest, or I give them the discretion to either, we're not arresting people and putting them in jail for it, we're forwarding it on to the prosecutor's office. But before we do that, how about we just cite them for no vol with ID, which is basically an infraction. It doesn't go on their criminal history. They can go to court, they can explain why they don't have a license. The court will reduce the fees, or oftentimes just throw it out altogether, but it still has some accountability without sucking them down that hole that they can never get out of again. And that came out of the Law and Justice Council. A number of other really good things come out of that group. And it's kind of funny because we have the Law and Justice Council, and then we have the Courthouse Security Council, and we have one other council, and it's all pretty much the same people talking about different things, but they're all, it all works out in the end. If that answered your question, I hope.
It did. Thank you very
All
much.
right, thank you.
We have a couple more, and then we're going to have to move on the agenda. And I have a couple issues I wanted to raise as well, but we have Tom and then Dick.
Okay. Thank you, Ron, for
Hey,
coming.
Tom. Yeah.
I believe we are identified as a sanctuary county, although I don't ever see or hear that term used around here. So my question is, how is it going with the policies and procedures that are in effect regarding the apprehension and holding of illegal people? And how's the relationship with ICE and the other federal officials going?
Yeah, so no problem. So that was an ordinance or a resolution that was brought up by Eleanor Hogue on Orcas Island, who I worked with them on that as well. It works very well. We've never deported anybody from this county that I can think of. We have a good relationship with ICE because, we meet them on the water and we deal with a lot of drug stuff. We don't turn people over to them. We haven't had them call, haven't had them ask who's in jail. I've always said that I don't want to just start deporting people, usually what we're end up doing is if we're going to deport somebody, it's going to be a domestic violence related charge, or it's going to be a DUI or something like that. It's not a major issue, major crime. But if we go and we investigate a domestic violence, we'll say a domestic violence where the father or the husband's hitting the wife, and we arrest him, find out he's illegal, and we deport him, then one, we're taking away 50% of that family's income, or maybe even 100% of that family's income. We don't know. But two, what we do is we make it so that victim will never call 911 again. And then what they do is they'll end up either with someone else, or maybe he comes back and he's back doing what he was doing before. They won't call 911. They're living with that abuse. And that's not right. It's not fair. I don't want to set the precedent of we just start deporting people because we can, or not necessarily because we can, but deporting them because they're illegal. It really is counterproductive to what we're trying to do with that community. And that's build trust in a community that already does not trust us. Even though, like I said, we've not done anything to make them not trust us, but society and everything going on nationwide, even though we don't take part in that, there's still that lack of trust there, and I don't want that. So it's important that we build that trust.
Thank you, Mr.
If that
Sheriff.
answers your question.
Dick Grau, you had your hand up?
I did. Hi, Ron.
Hey, Dick.
Hey, I'm sure you know that one of the things we're discussing is whether the sheriff's position should be elected or appointed.
Mhm.
And that has nothing to do with you, because
No.
our time horizon is 10 years.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
we're looking at that. And we had Ron Sims, the former King County executive here,
Mhm.
and he talked about their experience with elected versus appointed. And I'm sure you have knowledge and observation from working with other sheriffs. Are you willing to talk about what you see as pros and cons of an elected sheriff versus an appointed sheriff?
Yeah, so I thought about this, and in King County, the King County Sheriff is an administrator for a couple million people. The sheriff probably knows a small handful of people in King County. Here in San Juan County, I know, I won't say everybody, but I know literally everybody. Everybody knows me. I have that relationship with the community that the King County Sheriff doesn't have and could never have. Doesn't matter how many days a week that sheriff spends going from business to business to business. There's so many people who are never going to have that kind of relationship. So I think an appointed position in King County, I can see where it would work, although they have gone from appointed back to elected, back to appointed, as Pierce County has as well. So there obviously is no right answer and no wrong answer. I'll say that the average chief of police in this state or this country, they work about 3 years on the job, 3.5 years, and then they're moving on. I think if this community is best served, they're best served by continuity and consistency and having somebody that really knows the community. You can't come into this community and get to know everybody in 3 years, 4 years, really even 5 years. It took me probably a good 7 or 8 years of just even being a deputy to get to know everybody. And then, the last 6 years as a sheriff, I get out and I talk to a lot of people, and I've got a really good sense and a really good feel for this community and the constituents that put me in office. There is the ability to go out and recruit from a statewide or a nationwide job pool, a pool of candidates. So yeah, that would be a benefit. But then you're also looking at, in the sheriff's office, a lot of turnover and a lot of change at the top. And that can be challenging and difficult for small agencies as well. I'm not saying that you would find somebody in one of those national pools, or you would recruit somebody that would come in that wouldn't be here for a long time. But that's typically the way the chief of police around the state runs. I think it's, personally, I like being answerable to the community. I get out and, I go to homeowners association meetings and deal with problems with them. And I've done that a number of times around the islands and on Orcas Island as well. Every weekend, I really don't have a day off. I'm never off duty. I go to the coffee shop on Saturday and there's people that come up and end up talking to me. I mean, I go without intending to meet anybody and I'm always talking to people. And that's just the nature of an elected official. I'm sure the council members do that as well. I'm sure the treasurer, assessor, you know, any of the other elected officials do that. Just so happens that I'm probably the most, the biggest one in the spotlight. So, you know, my wife knows if she needs something from the grocery store now, don't send me because I'll be an hour before I get back. You know, that's just the way it is. And that's because I'm an elected official. I'm accountable to the people. And I think the people in this county know it. You know, is King County doing it wrong? No. Do the people of San Juan County want to go the King County way? I don't know. I kind of don't think that would, I don't know how well that would resonate with people not being able to choose who their elected law enforcement is.
To your knowledge, do any of the smaller counties
muted,
have an
Dick.
appointed sheriff, or are they all elected?
Can you guys hear me?
We can hear you.
Yeah.
Dick asked a follow-up question, which, can
hold
you hear me, Dick? Can you hear me, Sheriff?
Yes.
Hold on a second.
Can you hear us now, Sheriff?
1 minute. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
We can hear you.
Yes.
I couldn't hear you. So
Can you hear us now?
yes, I can.
Okay, so Dick just asked, we've got to move on, but two quick
Okay.
questions. One, Dick asked a follow-up.
I'll pass if you want me to, Kevin. not
Okay, we
to-
can find that out. Yeah, he was just
Okay.
asking if there's any sheriffs that are appointed versus elected.
In
So
smaller
I
counties.
have one question, Sheriff, which is one of the other things being discussed by this commission is the idea of a citizens oversight committee that has taken place in several jurisdictions around the country and in Washington State. And I'm just curious what thoughts you have on that. So there's more direct, and the discussion is not just for the sheriff's department, but the sheriff's department, the prosecuting attorney, and the courts. So over the law and justice system.
Yeah, so I would suggest that you look more, if you want to look towards something like that, I would say a citizen advisory group as opposed to a citizen oversight committee. The problem with an oversight committee is they oftentimes have subpoena powers. They can come in and they can, you know, walk right into the middle of a crime scene, potentially. Let's just take the worst case scenario. You've got an officer involved shooting and maybe the suspect who got shot lives, but we now have a citizen oversight committee that's going to come in and take this scene and operate as if, you know, we're going to start investigating the deputy when we really have potentially a criminal investigation, whether it's against the person, the victim, or it may very well be the deputy as well. They have not quite ironed out how that's going to work, and you start getting competing agencies together. The oversight committees quite often have the authority to fire people within the agency as well. I think in yeah, I don't know. That's a big topic. I would probably want to do some more thinking on it and even do a little more research on it and maybe have a much longer conversation about it. Generally, I would not necessarily be for an oversight committee. Like I said, I think my oversight is the community, newspapers, the media is definitely oversight. Facebook is plenty of oversight. But an advisory group, you know, some we can work with the citizens so that we can get information out better, be, you know, more transparent, I guess. I would not be opposed to.
Okay. Thank you, Sheriff. And thank you again for your time today and for your service to our community.
Yeah, no, not a problem.
Really appreciate you being here. And if we have other questions, we'll email them to you. And I know you've already been responsive, so you'll continue to be so. And
Yep.
if we need to, we'll see if maybe we have you back again too. But I think we've just gotten a great overview from you. So thank you so much.
Yeah, well, my door's always open to anybody, so feel free to stop by.
Excellent. Thank you, Sheriff.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to move directly into our county manager. We are about we're about 15 minutes behind schedule, so I'd like us to think about that when we're teeing up our questions as well. Mike, thank you so much for being here again. And this was more to talk about your position and go over that. And I want to give you we had allotted 20 minutes and I want to give you that amount of time. So let's dive in.
Okay. Yeah, thanks for inviting me back. Interesting conversation with the sheriff, especially in the Oversight Committee notion. I will just say that should merit a lot of discussion. When you get into some situations that are ugly, whether it's an officer-involved shooting, there's a lot of litigation. And I think you'd want to be really careful as to what the powers of the Oversight Committee had, so it doesn't frustrate that litigation. So my free 2 cents there. So I'll come back, I'll talk about the county manager position. And so I got just a couple of PowerPoint slides to foster the discussion today. So I'm gonna share my screen for a minute and start there. Sorry, I'm a Teams person now. I have to figure out how to share.
You should be able to go to the bottom of your screen and hit share. There you go.
Does that work?
Yes. Excellent. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. So obviously you're pressed for time, so I'm going to roll through this. So the question is the county manager's position and how that works. So just a couple of slides tonight, but so just a couple of things to point out about the position. So let's talk about relationships. So with this clip art, what I'm trying to convey is that the county manager is really like, you know, that whether you call it the county council, the commissioners, the city council, the board of directors, there's that person in the organization that's the main interface from that body to the organization. And so in this case, the county manager serves that function. So it's the identified person for that body, which in this case, again, is the council. That is their main interface with the organization. The other really important relationship that the county manager has is respect to communication with the council. So you're the prime conduit for information between the organization, and you're the prime conduit for communication between the council members themselves. Obviously, there's limits as to the type of communication that they can have. And so a large part of this job is making sure that they all have the relevant information, that information is timely, and so they have good information to do their work. So that is not really talked about much, but those of you that have worked with other boards and other organizations, you know that common communication is key to having a balanced and informed board. With respect to authority, there's language, this is taken out of the charter. So section 4.4 has a discussion about the county manager and really is identified as assisting in undertaking the responsibilities, the administrative responsibilities of the county. So again, it's that person that helps figure out what the county wants to do and how to get there. It's expounded on a little bit more, and the next talks about, you know, I'd serve at the pleasure of the council, whoever it is in this position serves at the pleasure of the council. Again, it's this language, I think, is intentionally loose because, you know, what the council wants to do and how they want to do it should be left up to some interpretation for each council. Although largely it kind of remains the same, but really you're trying to foster the business of the council. The budget is always identified because that's such an important role and responsibility, and then supervising staff and moving the organization forward. So the charter has some loose language about that position, but really what it does is establishes that relationship between the manager and the council and identifies that the manager is really the council's conduit for making the business of the county happen. In June of 2013, so really, after the 2012 charter, there was a resolution that was put together that has a little bit more detail. So it picks up from where the charter, of the language of the charter, and is a little more detailed in what it means. So basically, whether it's the charter or this resolution that was passed, the premise is that the council is responsible for the county, but it delegates certain things, but it always reserves the right to take these things back. So a council could say, hey, manager, you have certain duties, but we are going to take on, we're going to retain some of those duties. There may be some split there with a given council, but anyway, so again, this is expressed in the resolution. The chief management official, so running the organization, represented in the budget process. So we have an operating budget and we have a capital budget process that we go through. Annual goal setting. In this case, I'll use myself as an example, but we have a number of council retreats during the year. We have one on the workload in January, and we have one somewhere in the June, July, August continuum. And it sets up the expectations for the budget process. Developing work plans with the different departments, identifying strategies and initiatives, dealing with emergent issues. So I'll use a recent initiative as an example. I think 2 years ago, we were talking about new building investment. We wanted to do solar. We wanted to be an example for the community of solar projects. So that year we went into the capital budget and we allocated funds. So each new project that the county does will have a solar component on it. So we now have solar on the fairgrounds building. We'll have solar on the new shop building that we're going to build this year out of Beaverton Valley. So it's an example of where the council has an idea, the manager helps express that idea, and then other staff helps to make that come to reality. So that would be an example of an initiative. And then assisting council in vision and goals. We do that as part of our retreat. So the vision and goals dovetail into the budget. So the budget is more than just a compilation of numbers and columns. It's an expression and a roadmap where you want to go in the next year, or we've adopted a biennial budget, so over a 2-year period. So that's where the vision and goals gets in. You get those established, and then you let the budget follow that. Advising council on programs and organizational structure. A good example of organizational structures is that we have reorged, and we continue to reorg to perfect our service delivery, whether it's timing of permits, it could be a healthcare service, and it's also mixes in budgets. So we want to be frugal, but we want to maintain good services. And so one way we do that is we keep changing our structure to make sure that we are being efficient and effective in service delivery. I'll get to this a little bit later, but I have a lot of direct reports. And so I manage all the appointed department heads, and I'll have a slide on that in a little bit. I have a lot of, the manager has to have a lot of relationships with whether it's the town or the ports, neighboring counties. So you're always looking for partnership, you're looking for information, you're looking for opportunities. We've keyed on some joint operations with the port. A good example is really like project timing. So we know that the port is interested in fixing up Jackson Beach. We're going to partner with them on a road project. So we're always looking for some synergies with our partners. Responsibility for human resources. So the charter and the resolution talk about running the personnel system. It's really the human resource system. So the manager oversees that, and that breaks down into a lot of different components as far as training or labor relations, risk management. All of that is under the manager's office. A lot of authority when it comes to hiring of folks, and I get that manager position signs off on that. I touched on the communication amongst council and how important that is. Coordinating all of the departments. So I don't really like to distinguish between appointed and elected because we all work together. But there's things that we do that the manager needs to do to coordinate those bodies together. Weekly staff meetings is a good example of that. Information technology, of course, our IT system, and then signing authority. I have a lot of signing authority for different contracts and documents that come through this office. So on average, there's probably 250 to 270 documents that come through the county manager's office. Could be anywhere from, it could be a contract, could be a grant, interlocal agreements, all different forms of a lot of paperwork to do our business. And so that comes in, the departments review that. I have to review that. I have to buy off on a lot of stuff. There's a checks and balances with the auditor's office. So I call it paying the bills, but there's warrants, there's payroll, there's other transfers that Rhonda will sign off on, Mylene will sign off on, and it comes to the manager's office for final sign-in authority. And it's part of internal controls. You want two sets of eyes on a lot of the financial stuff that we do. Another responsibility is the county's part of what we call the Washington County's risk pool. Risk pools are set up under the state. Well, let me back up. Cities and counties can't go out on the market and get insurance. There was a crisis in the early 80s, so the state created legislation that allows cities and counties and school districts and port districts to join state mandated or state sanctioned pools. And then those pools go out and get insurance. But part of being in any of those is as a member that you have to, there's some requirements to make those organizations work. As you know, Randy Gaylord's the prosecuting attorney, so he represents the county, but you always need a client within the county. So a lot of times I'm the client when it comes to mediation or arbitration and litigation. So I'll work with Randy or one of his attorneys, or maybe an assigned attorney via the risk pool, and others. It could be a department head, or it could be James Wolf, our HR person. But we have a role and response. This office has a role and responsibility in dealing with those things. I've already mentioned the agreements and stuff that come through here. Labor contracts and negotiations is a responsibility of this office. So we had a lot of labor discussions this year as we were trying to right size our budget. So whether it's so we did an amendment to the contract and changed some stuff in there regarding wages. Never a popular move, but if you're in a budget crisis, you're in a budget crisis. And then interaction with boards and commissions, depending on subject or interest or need. So I certainly don't have time to go all of the boards and commissions, but there are ones that I do frequent that reflect where we are in the workload. When it comes to direct reports, there are a lot of direct reports that come to this office. At one time, there was I think back in 2008 or 9 or 10, there used to be an assistant county manager. That position went away in one of the early budget cuts before I got here. So the public works director, health and community services director, community development director, all of those listed there. All of those people report directly to me. So I always say I try to be value added. So I try to help them perfect their workload and also a conduit between them and the council. Frankly, this takes up quite a bit of time depending on what we have going for capital projects or just other daily issues. So I have a number of standing meetings with the department heads, either weekly or every other week, to make sure that I can help answer their questions and the workload is moving forward. So that can't emphasize enough, that just takes quite a bit of work. I'm sorry if this comes off incredibly fuzzy, but within the admin department, if you will. We have information services, we have human resources. I have a management analyst position that does a lot of important work. We have public records, we have board of equalization. We got ARC, Agricultural Resource Committee Coordinator in here. We have facilities and janitorial. And then we have what we call fleet, which is really ER&R, equipment rental and reserve. That entity buys all the equipment for the county. Could be a dump truck, could be a sander, a pile of gravel. It's the entity that goes and buys those commodities, mostly for public works, but for other departments, we run a large purchasing through that. And so that's just part of the immediate admin structure. So that plus the other direct reports on the prior slide all come focused at me on a daily basis. This is I took this out of the budget book, but this is an example of the strategy and initiatives that we sit down and try to craft every year. And this comes out of the budget book, but it's really kind of the main focus areas of the budget. It expresses what the county wants to do in the budget year going forward, or 2 years since we adopted the biennial budget. But it kind of gives you a flavor of what we're trying to do. You know, this says fiscal health. We have a lot of investment in technology that we're trying to perfect. We have an ongoing discussion about investment in our buildings. Frankly, our buildings don't look very good, so we need to have a proactive and sustained investment in some fixes. And then we have some other initiatives. So affordable housing has been on front and center on the plate for a number of years, and we've had some good success there. And then we have some other associated stuff. Ferries is always on there. And then we have some environmental considerations that we've been working on for quite a long time that others in the county have been very successful in. But it's an example of kind of that strategy that really this office is the driver on in consultation with the council, kind of a companion piece to that, and another example of what comes out of this office. We adopt federal and state legislative priorities every year. So the council works on this, and this is adopted, and we use this as our roadmap when we're in Olympia or we're talking with our federal representatives and say, hey, you know, this is what the county is about, and we use this as a basis to talk to whether it's the state legislature or federal contingent. Lastly, this is just some background on the job description. So I took this from the current job description, just to kind of throw out there. There is some requirement for this job. You need to have 8 years of experience in government finance. You should have 5 years of running an organization and some other stuff. But thought it was important to point out there is some requirement to running an organization, and that's expressed in the job description. So that's my attempt at trying to get this under 20 minutes for you, Kevin. Happy to answer any questions.
Yeah, Mike, thank you. That was really comprehensive and concise. So thank you. We do have a couple minutes more, though. I wanted to ask you if there's anything that I didn't want you to rush. So is there anything that you didn't cover that you'd like to throw out there before we go to questions?
No, I think probably the best part is just, you know, part of throwing that out there is to help people think about the position. So no, I'm happy to go straight into questions.
Okay, and if you could stop sharing your screen, then I could
Yep,
see everybody.
I can do that.
Thank you so much. Okay, so I see a hand from Jane, and then Maureen, and then Tom.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mike, for this second great presentation. Really appreciate it. A quick, just one question about that Civil Service Commission. which it seems you oversee. And Sheriff Krebs made reference to that Civil Service Commission when he spoke to us, and explained sort of the bottleneck that he can face in trying to recruit perhaps female or other diverse candidates for positions into his office. And it sounded like, you know, he can't hire women because either A, they don't apply, or B, they don't make the cut. And so, well, this is, you know, affirmative action has been around a long time. I'm curious to know, you know, what governs the decision-making of that body. And it strikes me as a bit surprising that there is nothing that might be in state law or otherwise that supports the hiring of diverse representative people into the systems of county government. I'd be really grateful if you could speak to that a little bit.
Yeah, I think I might follow up with you because it's, you know, it's the civil service is the same for every jurisdiction. It's the same hiring process. It's like Ron said, it's very regimented and it's not taking into, doesn't take into consideration what you're talking about, whether it's gender or other attributes that may be beneficial. So I'm not really sure what to say different than what Ron said on that hiring process. It would be something to talk to the legislature about, is changing the civil service system so it could be more dynamic than it is now.
Okay, thanks very much, Mike. I appreciate it. I might have a follow-on email for you about that.
Yeah,
but
please.
Yeah,
Yeah, please do. And
Yeah.
I'm gonna give you some additional information on that. But
yeah, we would be really grateful for that. Thank you.
yeah.
Okay, Maureen.
I just want to say off the top of my head, the scope of your job is so huge, Mike. It's inconceivable to me that you don't have an assistant of some kind to carry you through some of this. It's huge, just huge. I have a question and then another question. Why, I can understand the Board of Equalization clerk, but why is the ag resource under your wing?
Oh, that's, yeah. It's the Agricultural Resources Committee. So Marina, it solved a funding conundrum that existed for a bunch of years. So that position was actually with the EDC.
Yeah.
And once it's been a few years, but anyway, there was a funding conundrum, and we found some funds just in the general fund to support that, take it out of the EDC and put it in my shop. So there's no rhyme or reason that it's in my shop, but I guess the takeaway is that the county is committed to ag resources, and so they found the money. They found general fund money, and that gave the position consistent funding every year, as opposed to worrying about a grant or funding from the EDC. So it was just kind of an artifact of this longer conversation we had about how do we fund this thing. And then at the time, someone goes, well, just put it in admin for now. And it just stuck there. So
it's a conundrum kind of thing, huh?
Yeah.
Okay. My other question that's kind of more important is, and people have asked me to ask this question.
Okay.
It's about the consent agenda.
Yeah.
Some citizens apparently feel that there are items in the consent agenda that don't go before the council. And it's a question they would like to see if you can give an answer to that.
Yeah, no, the consent agenda is really an agenda item. And so, you know, it's listed, published with the council agenda. The council has the information in front of them. So when they get their packet, the consent agenda is really an agenda item, and it is really relegated to kind of the business of the county. So it lists out, as you know, it has like different warrant numbers or electronic fund transfer numbers. There's a payroll number. And that just reflects what the county has paid in the last 2 weeks. There's every now and then there's something really simple on the consent agenda that gets added, but the point is, the council has that information. It's part of every packet. So it's not something that's on the side or is a mystery. It's something that people can see online and they can ask questions about it if they wanted to.
Okay, thank you, Mike.
Yeah.
I guess
Okay,
I'm on.
Tom, please.
Back in the day, in the Board of County Commissioners days, when I was a commissioner, we had a different model. We were each assigned as liaison to 7 or 8 departments.
Mhm.
And we met with them regularly and brought all their aches and pains to the table.
Yeah.
And so all those myriad of little functions that I see that you're managing have now been taken off the table for the board. And we understand from our chairman that they only meet every other week now. So what is a typical week that you go in, and what are the items that you talk to them about?
Well, the council meets, they're required to meet 2 Tuesdays a month. And then they typically add 2 Mondays a month, and they marry those up. So they're on average meeting, 4 days a month. So they are meeting quite a bit. That'll change a little bit through the year, depending on, might lighten up in the summer. So they do meet 4 times a month. And then, so you're saying, what do I talk about them on a given week?
What are typical things that you need to talk to them about?
It could, well, let's see. This week, well, let's just use this week as an example. Hang on one second. Well, I certainly talked to them about vacation rentals.
My God, you do.
So we talked to them about vacation rentals. There was actually a lot of staff discussion. So part of my role is, meeting with them. And that included other staff, because, part of solving stuff like vacation rentals is figuring out what information do we need? What information does the council need? They have different perspectives. And so I'm always trying to get them a body of information that's going to help answer all of their questions. So I talked quite a bit about vacation rentals in the last couple of weeks. We talked to them about Argyle Lots. It's a piece of property here in Friday Harbor that's in the town. It's actually across from where the land bank has their buildings. It's a 1.74 acre parcel of land. We want to see affordable housing built on there. So I talked to them about a conversation I'm having with the town about moving forward and developing that as affordable housing. So that was kind of informational for our new council members. And then Jamie, who's been around for a while, he's been part of that conversation, but there's some new components to that. We are doing a tour for each of the council members, kind of on their home island, to introduce them to the capital projects that are on the schedule for this year, and some other constituents things. So working with staff to arrange those tours. We talked to them about appointment of a parks director. We have an interim parks director right now. So letting them know that I'm going to go to the park board tomorrow and talk about starting that process to look for a parks director. So kind of, those are just, it's always kind of a grocery list of stuff that I talked to them about. A lot of stuff's like heads up. So I have a lot of discussion with Jamie about what's going on in the legislature. And so we kind of work together to figure out what's important to the county. The department heads feed in to Jamie and myself, bills that they're interested or concerned about. So we have a lot of conversation on that. So that's kind of a smattering of stuff that I kind of involved with council this week.
Thank you, Mike.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Any other last questions?
There's a couple more.
We have Kyle, and then David, and then Bob, and then we're going to move on.
Bob was ahead of me.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mike, I promise not to always have the subjective questions, but
Yeah.
you alluded to this in a number, as we hear from other county employees, especially, or department heads. The county is shrinking, the workforce is shrinking through retirement, attrition, and the cost of workforce is preventing us from filling a lot of those positions. I have a feeling that a number of the committees are finding that the work that we're trying to do is actually to try and not legislate, but through our role, try and find some teeth in some of these topics, because some of the aspects of kind of the functions of the county, because of employment shortages and bandwidth, there's a lot of great work happening in the county. There's a lot of great people here already doing some of that. But because we're not having great enforcement from an environmental perspective, we're having difficulty getting some of the past resolutions and ordinances and the teeth related, pushed forward and disseminated through. We've got a great comp plan. And it'd be fine to give us this response offline. I'm curious, your office has the perspective on the whole county.
Yeah.
And I wonder where you see this going and how we fix some of those levels so less of it has to be legislated or put into the structure of the charter.
Yeah, I think I have a long answer for that for you on that, but
I do want to hear that response at some point.
Yeah, and I think my immediate response is that as any organization, you always struggle because, especially in local government, we want to do something for everyone, but in the end of the day, we don't have the resources to do everything for everyone. And so, when you mentioned environmental, we have one code enforcement person that covers the entire county. Maybe if we wanted to do a really awesome job, we'd have 5 people. But then you run into financial resource consideration. And is it more important to have 5 code enforcement people or 2 more nurses or a public work inspector? So let me give you a little more less off the cuff response to that. But I would just say it's a struggle with people and money to figure out, and priorities to figure out how to cover all this stuff. And I will say for San Juan County, as there's the town obviously, but we really are it in people turn to us for all kinds of stuff, which is great. I'm glad that they do that, but it's even more so than I think other jurisdictions. And I think we're always going to struggle with being asked to do a lot. So it's a tough balancing act. But let me have some more thought on the teeth part of your question.
Thank you.
Okay, we're gonna go to Bob and then David.
Okay, thanks, Mike, for being here. This is going to be a real short question, and I think it comes out of me possibly misreading something. When you put the slide up there about the job description for the county manager, it looked like one item said that a new county manager doesn't have to live here for the first 6 months.
No, I think they had to be here 6 months prior to being hired.
Is that what that meant?
I think there was I think Bob, you might have, well, I can tell you. Hang on.
Must live here.
I believe that it says they have to be a resident 6 months prior to being hired.
Well, that sure isn't what it looked like, but maybe
No.
After.
No, it says primary residence in San Juan County within 6 months of hiring.
Oh.
Whoa. That doesn't mean the person comes on the job and then has to move here within 6 months. Does it mean doesn't have to start the job for 6 months?
It means that once they're hired, they have to be living here within 6 months of being hired.
You got.
But you don't start the job till you move here, right?
No, I think it's you have to. Your primary residence has to be here, so you have to live here within 6 months of hiring the job. But you can't live here. You can't do the job unless you live here. So
I would think. Okay.
I mean,
All
for me, example, I came here, I lived in an apartment for 3 months, and then I found a rental house and then transitioned in, but there'd be no way you could get hired and then show up 6 months later. I don't see
Yeah,
how that would
I wouldn't
work.
think so. Thank you.
But I see, okay. See where you're
Okay,
coming from.
David?
Clarification, Mike, please, the county council members cannot meet unless they meet in public, because if 2 of them met with each other, that's a quorum, and they can't do that without it being a public meeting. So, but with regard to your meeting with the county council members, does that provision have any impact on how you interact with the county council members? Do you have to interact with them one by one by one?
Exactly.
Or can you
No.
meet with 2 of them if it's not an issue that's going to be brought before the council for a decision, for example?
No, I always meet with them one-on-one.
1 to 1 to 1. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh boy, that complicates things, doesn't it?
Yeah, but otherwise you get accused of having a meeting.
Oh, yeah.
Even if we were just talking about how great the Mariners are going to be this year. So yeah, it's always one-on-one.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Mike, I had one question myself,
Yeah.
which is just to clarify, and I was not targeting you in our budget discussion yesterday, so sorry about that example. But listen, my understanding is that you are about to hire a deputy. So your notes just now in
No.
your presentation
No.
said deputy is
No.
gone. So is that position?
No, let me be clear. So there's no deputy director, there's no assistant county manager. That's the thing of the past. What I went to council a couple years ago and said, if I can't get an assistant county manager, then I want what I call a management analyst. It's kind of a someone with like 5 to 6 years of experience that that can help me do some budget research, do some writing, work on an agreement. So it's a very staff level position, but it's the horsepower I need to keep going. So that's much different than saying, oh, Mike just hired an assistant county manager. That's not the case. Yeah.
Very different. Okay, thank you for that. Thank you for
Okay.
that. Okay. Any final questions?
Yeah, so Kyle's asking a question. Does anyone know if Mike's position gets an annual evaluation? The answer to that is yes. The chair of the council does my evaluation. Well, pulls in the other council members, but yes.
Thanks.
Okay.
Great. Anne Marie, was that something? No. Okay. Mike, thank you. Thank you for coming
All right,
back a
yeah.
second time. Thank you for being so available to us.
Sure.
And also thank you again for just helping us get going in the beginning. That was a big
Oh,
deal.
you're
When
welcome.
you
All right.
and everything happened.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mike.
All right. Bye.
Okay. So we're going to go into the committee reports. And what I would ask is that we try and be brief. Give me 1 sec, Dick, just to say this. And then the other thing I was going to say is I just had a suggestion from Janet, and I'm going to try this, which is going forward, instead of spending so much time with the reports, what I'd like to ask is for committee leads to send the full commission an update from your committee. And it doesn't have to be too engaged. Just give us a brief update via writing before the meeting, and then we can go around and ask questions from each committee, just to try and save time going forward. But for tonight, which committee would like to start? Okay, Dave. And the other thing I want to say is one of the things we're really looking for tonight too, going into the town halls, is what are the highlights that we should be talking about in the town halls from your committee? That's what we want to hear tonight.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Chair. We had a
Dave,
great,
please.
I'm sorry. Thank you, Mr. Chair. We had a great meeting on Thursday night from 7 to 8. There was questions about the nature of the deputy manager, and is that
Dave,
a role?
I'm sorry, what's your committee?
I'm sorry. The governance committee.
Mhm.
And we meet every Thursday from 7 to 8. And there was a question about questions about the deputy manager. Is that a position that's filled, and how is that the nature of that? And so it was very informative to hear that right now from Mike. We've had some conversations with also with the manager, and where there's some concerns that there might be a few small things that will need to be addressed in terms of how the council and the manager are interacting. Those will be future discussions we're having. We discussed a little bit about whether or not we should change or explore changing the size of council between 3 and 5 to be 3 and 5. And there was, and we voted on that, and there was a vote that 5 people on our committee were opposed to that, and 2 of us were in favor of it, and there's an abstention. So that is not going to be something we're going to be taking up at this time, but we were thinking that it would probably be taken up by the entire commission at some point. We have not talked about, let's see, there's also interest in terms of how often does council meet. We're going to be exploring that. Is twice a month enough, or should we recommend that they meet weekly on a weekly basis? And so that's something we're going to be researching and going forward. Another big issue that's going to be, I think we're looking forward to coming up, is going to be island governments. And I know there was a good piece of information from the prosecuting attorney today. And so that's going to be coming up on our agenda. That's what we've been doing so far, and looking forward to more.
Great, thank you. Any questions for Dave? Dick, is that a question for Dave?
I want to make a comment.
Okay, please.
And I'm not picking on you, Dave. This goes back to our last meeting where we did this. Can we please talk about, as Kevin asked first, the things that are gaining traction that are likely to come before the committee, not everything the committee talked about?
Certainly.
That'd be great, particularly since I've got 10 minutes for all of this, and then our next subject, and then we're going to public comment, and then we're adjourning. So, but we have, the biggest thing here is we have town halls this week, and we need to know what to put in the initial presentation. So what we don't get to tonight, I'll ask you to email me. So I'm going to go to Patty, and then Tony, and then Anne Marie.
I've got a really short one.
Yay.
Initiative and Referendum Committee. We met Monday, and we're still in the process of discussing ways to make the initiative and referendum process more robust and accessible. And we plan to hear from outside experts. We have nothing to bring to the big committee yet. We're thinking about possibly lowering the number of signatures required, but there are other issues. And we're looking forward to hearing, from in the town hall, from the people. And so I don't really have anything to get out there except possibly the number of signatures, which is our issue.
Wonderful, thank you. Okay, Tony.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Our committee is the Elections Committee. And I believe if all goes well, we should be able to wrap things up tomorrow evening. We'll have a meeting tomorrow evening. We are prepared to discuss things with the commission, but we are not proposing many changes coming forward other than a statement regarding some election procedures, which will be a recommendation to the commission to consider and move forward to the elections office. Thank you.
Excellent, thank you. Okay, is that a question, Bob? You're muted. You wanted to go. So I'm going to go to Anne Marie first, and then we'll go to Bob.
Okay, the Climate and Environment Committee feels like we're ready to have the public know that we're seriously considering a climate sustainability and resiliency position that would be a full-time elected position.
Thank you. Okay, who was next, Bob?
Yes, the process committee is still chewing over this whole Bill of Rights concept, and it's kind of slowed down on it because we're going to need more consideration. The preamble, we hope to look at and possibly even adopt a preamble as early as next week. The third thing that we're trying to accomplish is to take a look at what the community thinks is working governance-wise and what is not working. We're going to be attending the town halls and looking at other ways to accomplish that. Kevin, there was one thing that the committee asked me to ask you. They voted unanimously to have me ask you to request of Randy Gaylord whether or not we can make the comp plan mandatory. The committee is showing considerable interest in the comp plan and how it can come to bear.
Oh, wow. I love that question. Okay, so would you just I'll make a note of it. Never mind. But I'd
Do you want
love
me to make
if
a memo
you
to
could-
you, Kevin?
Yeah, if you, I don't need a memo. I just need how you
just,
want how you want the question. Just send
We'll
it
do
to
it.
me, please.
I'll do it.
Okay, Maureen, please.
Yes. Okay, so the elected versus appointed committee has been punching our way through all of these items. We have agreed as a group that we will be recommending that the county manager not be elected, but be appointed. And we are declining to discuss the topics regarding his function, authority, and work. I think Mike covered that perfectly well tonight. The only other decision we came to was that the county health officer will remain as is, and there will be no changes there. And at our next meeting, we are going to tackle auditor, treasurer, and assessors situation, that the consolidations. We're going to take up a couple of scenarios, and we're going to submit them to Mike for cost analysis. And that's the plan.
Thank you,
Oh,
Maureen.
and I want to say one thing.
Yeah,
One
please.
thing. One of the things I'm trying to get everybody on our committees to do, and Kevin is saying it as well. We need to be writing. Oh, excuse me. We need to be writing our reasons for these positions. We need to defend these positions and be thinking about that all along the way. It's critical. It'll take a paragraph of the highest points and bring that in as part of the recommendation.
That's a very important point, as some of us talked about recently. Our recommendations going out to the people is the first step. Then we've got to go sell those to the people. So, Jane, before I go to you, I have one comment, Maureen, that the functions of the manager would also be discussed possibly in governance committee. And for instance, resolution 10, 2013, which basically dictates half of his functions, is only in a resolution. Should that be in the charter? Those sorts of questions would be in a different committee. Jane, please.
You're on
You're
mute.
muted.
I couldn't find my picture. Sorry, everybody. Okay, that's really embarrassing. Okay, yeah, I just wanted to say, Kevin, totally agree with you on that point that you just made, but I also wanted to say to Maureen, also appreciate that point you just made, because I had the same thought, which is, as we listen to each other talk about, some of these issues we're deliberating as a committee, and we're kind of like ticking them off. Yeah, really being rigorous about being able to explain to the broader commission our rationale there and our thinking, because I can already feel like there may be a little bit of dissonance when we come back as a full commission, and the committee's going to really need to be able to speak to the deliberations. But as you said, Maureen, with brevity, but very clearly. Yeah, thanks, Maureen, for that.
Okay, is that it for committee reports? Kyle, please.
So I think Justice and Equity might be last. We meet Mondays 4 to 5:30. Of the original set, the priorities have appeared to be kind of the first two, one more than the other, and you've heard from a bunch of folks about those today. So generally how the charter and current government structure can serve, improve equal and equitable rights and access and inclusion for all populations. That has a little less form. I feel like our group maybe has to do some of what Jane was talking about. And then to evaluate the value or the relevance of this independent citizens, either law and justice oversight or advisory committee. So those are the two with the most teeth so far.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Sorry to rush through those so quickly, but I still think it was helpful. I would like to ask that each of you who just reported out, please send myself and Catherine and Olivia an email highlighting if there's key points that you would like presented at the beginning of the town halls. And now let's quickly go into those town halls. So they are Friday from 5:30 to 7:30 and Saturday from 2 o'clock to 4 o'clock. I'm hoping that all of you can attend. It is not necessary. It is not obligated for all of you to attend, but I'm really hoping each of you can attend both meetings. The other thing I'm hoping is that between now and Friday, each of us do everything we possibly can to make sure people attend these and participate. So via social media, Facebook, emails. Janet Burnell put together a great flyer. There's some other talking points that have been shared. If you need them, Catherine can share them with you. But it is our duty to get the message out there of what the charter is and why these town halls are so important. And so I'm really hoping that each of us can commit to really blasting social media and email and so on. Yes, Bill.
There's a community conversation meeting tomorrow night, and the more people who hear what is said, there were a good 36 people on it last week. I think it would be a good place to listen and hear what is on people's minds, because the town hall isn't going to cover them all.
What's the meeting tomorrow night?
It's called a community conversation, and I think it's been advertised. It's on a Zoom, and
Okay.
I think people who are interested, I don't have the info, but it's been publicized and it can be found.
Okay, are you going to be on that?
Yes.
Well, then could you make an announcement at that people should attend the meeting Friday?
I've asked its sponsor. I sent her a copy of the town hall announcement and asked her to announce it.
Excellent. Thank you so very much. Okay. So with that, Jane, I'll come back to you if we have time after public comment. It is 10 till, so I want to go to public comment. So if there's anybody here from the public who would like to speak to the commission, if it's possible, take yourself off of mute and video so we can see you. And if you're on a phone or something, go ahead and just speak up and let me know that you'd like to address us. Anybody?
Kevin, I'd like to ask a question.
Yes, please.
Could you tell me what again?
I'm sorry, could you just we can see it, but can you just introduce yourself for the record, please?
Leith Templin from Orcas. Can you just tell me the times about the town meeting? I see it's Friday and Saturday, but when
It's
and how
Friday
will you
at
get an invitation?
It's Friday at 5:30 p.m. and Saturday at 2 p.m. and they will be Zoom meetings, and they are on our website. And let's see, Catherine. They're on our website, and they will also be put out. I believe we're friends on Facebook. I'll have it on my Facebook as well. But you can also email us through the website and get the information there.
And what's the website address?
Catherine, can you say verbally the website, or we can put, there it is. It's in chat. Can you see that?
Yes, I can. Okay.
Okay.
And it stays there. And then how do I get information about this community conversation?
I don't know anything about that. Bill?
I guess we all are on different lists, but what I'll do is get it to Catherine and she can put it out. It'll be tomorrow afternoon.
Great.
Okay, thank you.
And Catherine, could you send the times and the website information to everybody on the commission via email as well? And
Yes.
Liz, I saw your hand up.
Leith, if you're familiar with Lopez Rocks, the town hall meetings are posted there with times and link to take you directly there. And I think the community conversation may be listed there as well. If you're, are you familiar with Lopez Rocks?
No.
Okay. It's
It's a-
lopezrocks.org, and it has a calendar that's very resourceful, easy to find.
Okay, okay. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions from the public? Okay. Jane, you had a question before we went to public comment? You're fine?
No, I'm good, thank you.
Okay. Liz, please.
So I think this was actually brought up by Kyle, and I thought it was a great idea of the structure of what happens with what we hear from the community in our town hall meetings.
Oh, you broke
Kevin,
up a
do you-
little, Liz.
Pardon me? I didn't hear you, Kevin.
We can
You
hear you,
broke-
Liz. He
you
was
broke
saying you
up a
broke
little
up
bit.
for him.
We couldn't hear you.
Okay, I just want to make sure that we're going to hear from the community and what is our structure for what we're doing with the information. Kevin, are you going to direct that into specific subcommittees, or what is our mechanism for making sure we keep that conversation alive and utilize the information we get?
Yes, so thank you for that. That's a great question. So my anticipation is that, and I've stated this before, the format of the meeting will be a very brief presentation in the beginning and then public comment, and not a back and forth, but really allowing people to comment. If there's less people there, we can have a little bit of back and forth, but we don't want to get too much into that. We want to really hear from the public, and then how that will be delineated back to us is that I think the suggestion you just made is actually a good one, that maybe we will list out, and this will happen, we will list out everything we hear. Some of it will be complimenting or commenting on things we're already working on. Some of it will be new ideas. Where there are new ideas, we will try and assign those to the appropriate committees and begin discussing those. And some of them maybe come to the full commission for discussion. But everything that comes from the public, we're going to have to discuss and consider, both comments on issues we're already addressing or new topics.
Excellent, thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions? Yeah, Maureen.
Just quickly, James Wolfe has been really cooperative in giving us information for the Operations Committee. And I have a copy of the Personnel Manual, which contains some of the language that I think Preamble and Bill of Rights people and all of that group might need to review. He is working on an anti-bullying update right now. But I'm gonna, if it's okay, I'll send it to everybody, the Personnel Manual.
I think that would be great. I think that would be great.
Done.
Catherine, I cannot remember. You had an excellent suggestion for me to bring up during new business. What was that?
It was prioritizing and scheduling upcoming stakeholders so that I can start making those.
Yes. So not as much on the prioritization, but we are planning on hearing from every elected. We're going to reach out to some past electeds. We have a few of us on this board already, but there's some others, particularly like, Rick Hughes, who was just stepped down from his position on Orcas, and here was for quite a while. Not now, but I'd like you to email Catherine and myself suggestions for others you would like to hear from. So be they within the county or out of the county. If there's people that you think we would benefit from hearing from, I'd like you to please let us know so that we can get them on the calendar, because our calendar is starting to get pretty full with different presentations. And I know that there's others we still need to hear from. And like I said, all of the electeds are on that list, and some of the department heads we're considering as well. So if you can just email us, that would be awesome. Kyle, please.
Mr. Chair, are we in new business now then?
Yes.
Okay, two things that came out of committee. One, there was a request that for email, because our email list is getting so long, if you have business for a particular committee, that you put that committee's title as the first word or two in the subject line. And then related, I'm not sure if people are using 365 and the Teams function. I see now that Catherine and others are doing an excellent job on our set of the website. Do we want to use that Teams file area for? Is anyone else using that? I've been going there to look for information, and I just wonder if it has value, and if it does, we should be consistent and fill it in like we are with the website. If it doesn't, then I won't feel any obligation to go there or to populate it.
Is there a consensus from folks that are using that or not using that? I will admit I'm entirely a Mac person, and so I am not using it, and I've been forced to use Slack in the last year. And I think my brain is kind of fed up with new ways to sort my life. That said, if this full committee or commission is interested in using this, I know it is an excellent resource and we're already on it. And so if others want to
Yeah.
go there, I would encourage us all to go there. So I see Jane and then Maureen.
Just in the last Charter Review Commission, there apparently was this repository of, I don't know, 3 binders full of photocopied materials or something like that. I mean, it strikes me, based on my beginning to use Teams myself, I'm also a Mac person, Kevin, but it's really not, it's pretty seamless uploading stuff from your Mac onto that Microsoft Teams 365. We've got to have a repository, and I completely support Kyle's point. And we need to be just dumping our minutes in there, dumping the agendas in there, dumping documents that are being shared with the commission in there, if that's where Catherine thinks they should be. But gee whiz, I mean, and so much is going electronic nowadays. There won't, anyway.
Just to clarify, everything is being captured and everything is made available. The Teams discussion is more for us. Is that where we're going to get our information? So, and we are at 6 o'clock. So I'm going to allow Maureen to go and then Anne-Marie, and then we're done.
I just want to say that I figured out how to load into those team files, and I thought it was a great thing. And thank you, Kyle, for your instruction and help. I think it's great to do it. You can't have it in enough places in this thing.
Okay. Anne-Marie?
Well, it just seems duplicative to me when we're giving everything to Catherine and it's being posted on the website. So, I mean, like you, I'll do what everybody else is doing, but I don't think we need to be creating second systems to keep the information in, because as soon as, if there's some kind of call for the information, the easiest way to get it is going to be from Catherine and the systems that we're putting together on the Charter Review website.
Understood. Okay, so I will get a lesson from Kyle. And David, I'm sorry, I see your hand. I'm going to ask you to email everybody because it's 6:01 and I'm adjourning the meeting. So I would ask for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All right, we have a motion by Bill and David is a second. You guys are all great. Have a great evening. Thank you very much. I'll see you all soon.
Bon appetit.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Right.